It's 10:47, August 3rd, 2024, and we got a special video today in that it's on a movie I haven't really talked about on this channel before, and it's also it's probably a movie a lot of people don't really talk about, so I was kind of excited to A, do it, and B, you know, that I actually have something interesting to say about it, I guess. So this is what we're going to do for today. We're going to be reviewing Age of Ultron, kind of, but also we're going to be talking about like wasted characters from the MCU, phase 1 through 3 in particular. And yeah, I watched the movie a few weeks ago, and I actually did this on my radio show, and I wanted to do it on my actual channel here. And I'm just gonna pull up IMDb so I can like look at Age of Ultron for a second here. This is what I do on my radio show. I always have whatever I'm reviewing in front of me. I also recommend you watch my Marvel tier list that I did like 2 years ago or something. I really enjoyed doing that. I watched all the movies, phase 1 through 3 in order, and it was a really good experience. I'm going to silent my phone because I'm in a Twitter group chat and it doesn't shut up. Okay, so Age of Ultron was directed by Joss Whedon, who he made the first Avengers as well, I believe. Oh no, he just wrote it. No, he directed it too. So Age of Ultron is a movie that is constantly dunked on by everybody, it seems. Everybody seems not to really care for it too much, but I'm a guy that really likes Age of Ultron, and yeah, it is the worst Avengers movie, no doubt, but I think that's a high bar anyway, so I think it's still a really good movie. I give it like an 8.7 or something, I think, is what I rate it, or like an 8.8. The plot of the movie is definitely like, it's like less realistic than the other ones and less interesting, I would say. It's basically like a fuck up that leads to a bunch of other stuff. So it is a little bit extraneous, I guess. So basically the plot is they're hunting down Hydra, and in the midst they recover like I don't know if it's the like it's Loki's staff, I think they recover. And the Tesseract, I think they have. And then basically, Bannon and Stark, like, try to make a AI that will, like, defend the Earth. And basically, it goes wrong, and then the AI, like, turns against the programmer, and basically grows to like hate Tony Stark, and then it turns on the Avengers, thinking that they're the cause of all the world's problems. And then they basically lose a bunch, and I'm doing a basic review. I'm not going to go into super detail. But then like Ultron tries to build himself a body of flesh that's like infused with vibranium and give himself a real brain. And while this happens, the two other superhero villains that were previously allied to Ultron, one of them who can read people's minds, Scarlet Witch, turns against Ultron and joins the Avengers with her brother because she sees that Ultron's trying to destroy the world. But then basically the Avengers recover this body that Ultron is building, and they basically upload Jarvis's conscious in it. and that's how they create Vision. And then they have their final battle at Sokovia, and they defeat Ultron. That was a basic overview. I really like this movie. I recommend people watch it, give it another chance. Um, and yeah, the last action scene is really solid, great action. One thing I like about this movie that a lot of other Avengers movies don't have is like there's like slow motion cinematic action scenes that are really cool, like honestly really awesome in this movie. Um, and yeah, I can't really explain it very much, but so that was basically that movie kind of summarized, and I'll say it's got all the good stuff about the Avengers. Great action. It's very funny. It's good camaraderie between the team. We get more like character development for Tony, his like paranoia about the world. Captain America, who's like sort of opposed to Tony's fatalism and all that. Technically, Tony Stark gets proven right by everything in this movie. But yeah, really good movie. But I want to talk about the main thing in this video, which is going to be wasted characters. And the reason I'm tagging it on to a mini review of Age of Ultron is this was the last good Hulk movie. So he's the first wasted character, and then we're going to talk about Thor, and then like kind of Vision, who's also introduced in this movie. But we'll start with Mark Ruffalo's Hulk / Bruce Banner. So, obviously there was the Edward Norton Hulk, but we don't really need to go into that. But The Incredible Hulk was actually a pretty solid movie. I liked it a lot. But let's just say Mark Ruffalo's Hulk was introduced in the first Avengers and was like a really, really solid interpretation / iteration of the Hulk. He had this darkness to him, like he was this guy that was a monster basically, and he isolated from the world to protect others from his wrath basically. And then he joins the Avengers, and they're basically on this helicarrier, and there's tension throughout that he's gonna blow up and attack everybody and destroy everything. And then we get to learn more about him, that he's got some pretty dark things, like he tried to kill himself and he spat out the bullet as Hulk, because he can't die, but he's also clearly this guy that's very depressed and he's kind of got this sad story. But there was always this threat of violence with the Hulk, and he was a serious character. Even when he wasn't the Hulk, when he was Bruce Banner, he was a smart guy. Like I said, he had that darkness, and he was just a good part of the team. And when he did transform into the Hulk, he was fun to watch. He was strong, and all that. And then continuing into Age of Ultron, that is the same way. Scarlet Witch basically messes with his brain, and he goes on a killing spree, kills a bunch of people, and then like is devastated by it because once again he's affirmed that he's basically a monster inside. And yeah, at the end of the movie he just disappears because he's like once again been driven out town by his I don't know, his other form, his green form. But then like something weird happened after this. He like disappeared for a bunch of movies. Then all of a sudden he came back in Ragnarok, which never made sense. Like he disappears in a fighter jet in Age of Ultron, and then supposedly like travels through space and ends up in Ragnarok. And you're like, okay. But then they started like turning him into a goofball character in that movie, and he was having basically he couldn't even transform anymore. He wasn't scary. There was no threat of violence. There was no physical threat from the Hulk. He wasn't a dark character anymore. He was just like this guy, goofball. Then Infinity War continued to decline. He couldn't transform. He was in this weird Hulk suit. And then and then in Endgame, they turned him into a massive buffoon. I think they call him Professor Hulk, who does the dab. And yeah, so that's the first wasted character. I would say that they totally shat all over the Hulk. They turned him into this interesting, smart, dark, physically capable superhero that's kind of got like a bit of a anti-hero part to him. And then they just turned him into like a buffoon for a comic relief that can't even use his power, and he's basically a non-character. And he had so much potential. He should have got his own movie, or they should have started Phase 4 with a Hulk movie, not Black Widow, who was a dead character and was a crappy movie. They should have given Hulk his own movie, like with Mark Ruffalo. That would have been solid, really cool. Of course, they gave She-Hulk her own show, which we all know how that turned out. But yeah, big wasted opportunity with Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. And I have kind of a suspicion that Mark Ruffalo may have had some input on making him into a goofball, because he's a dumb guy. He's a goofball in real life, and I think he may have been involved in that. The next character, should we do Vision or Thor? I guess we should do Vision first. So Vision was introduced in this movie. He was smart. He was introduced as like capable, like the pair to Ultron, this very powerful guy that harnesses the Infinity Stone. He was wise, like charming, and insightful. Like he has lots of lines in this movie that actually like are kind of beautiful, and it makes you think. Like he like talks to Ultron. He's like, yeah, humans are destructive, but there's grace in their failings, and that he's honored to be among the Avengers because he like admires humanity and all that. And then he has the final line of the movie, or one of the final lines, where he's like, Ultron says, "You're hopelessly naive," and Vision says, "Well, I was born yesterday." And that was a really good intro to the character. I love the voice actor. He's got good powers, and he was like a good addition to the team. And then in Infinity War, he was like nerfed. They turned him into this like half-man dude that was, for some reason, dating Scarlet Witch, which was weird. In Civil War, he was still good. He was good because he was kind of like Tony Stark's guy, because that's essentially his like father, because of Jarvis, because Stark made Jarvis. And then in Infinity War, he was screwed up, and then he's sort of just went out the window. But that's a minor wasted character compared to Thor and Hulk, but I still like the character and wish they did more with him. And then we have Thor. So Thor is like the most wasted character, just by virtue of the fact like he had his own like series and all that, and then they just shot all over him. So in Thor 1, which I think is pretty underrated, especially like story-wise, it's underrated. The premise of Thor 1 is that he's basically this guy who's born into a great family and great powers, and he basically is set to become the king. And he's basically arrogant and kind of immature and all that, and he thinks he's entitled to his father's throne. And his father, who is Odin, grows tired of him and says, like, nope, you gotta learn what it means to be king, and I banish you to Earth. I take away all your powers, and you have to, you know, gain some insight about what it means to rule over people. And then the whole movie is him basically gaining that maturity and learning what it means to be worth his title, or his future title of king, before his father grants him his powers again. And it's sort of this great story. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like the great story of the father, or even the god that grants you your strength. And it's also the story of, like, you know, kind of coming into your own, or learning the value of being a leader and what it means to be a leader. And it was a really good character. He was, by the end of Thor 1, he was much more mature. You knew he was worthy of becoming king. And he continued that development through the next couple movies. But then in Ragnarok, it sort of all went weird, where you had Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson, who was there kind of showing up Thor, making a fool of him. He was basically getting dominated by this new queen character, who was like a sassy queen, and she was in charge, you know. That's what they do these days. And she was awful. And then basically he loses in Infinity War. He was good in Infinity War. He was like really in charge, doing well. He loses. Then for some reason he makes that annoying lady, Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie, into the king, even though she's a lady. So I don't see how she's the king. But I guess that's just the world we live in. And then he becomes this fat loser. And he's like playing Fortnite, drinking beer, doesn't want to be a hero anymore. And then like he finally gets with the program, goes fights, but he's a big fat loser still. And then by the end of the movie, he still doesn't want to be king. So it's basically like they created this whole arc where the point of Thor's character is he's maturing, he's becoming worthy of his father's name, his title, all that stuff. And then by the end, they're just like, nah, he doesn't want to be king. He just wants to like vibe. You know, he's just finding himself, is what the term is I think they used. Which is basically like some stupid term from my generation that basically means like nothing at all. And yeah, so instead of a character arc where the character starts in one place and ends at another, we had a character circle where he started immature and he ended immature and like a doorknob and not really worthy of his father's title. That was definitely the biggest mistake of Phase 1 through 3. And don't get me wrong, it is funny. The movies are funny, but the problem with some of Marvel is like sometimes they do the comedy at the expense of their own heroes. And in Thor's case, for some reason, he got like the freaking laser beam of the jokes at his expense, and it really destroyed his character. And now I don't even know what he's doing. That Thor movie, the number 4, I've seen clips. It's just a disaster. They humiliated him even more, and he's really not even a character anymore. But yeah, those were the 3 characters I think that really went wrong with Marvel Phase 1 through 3. And I think just in general and like long term, it would have been so much better for the series if they had treated them with respect. You could have had a great standalone Hulk movie and a great Thor 4, and they could have still been part of the Avengers. And now you see they have this whole reboot with Robert Downey Jr. They're panicking. Maybe they'll make a good movie for once. But you know, they kind of trashed all these other people. And it's a little bit worrying. But yeah, I hope you liked this short video. My head kind of hurts, so maybe it wasn't the best video. I just wanted to get this on the record. And yeah, so thanks for watching. And Sussy Boy out.